Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever poured your heart and soul into something, only to have the people closest to you dismiss it as nothing? This is a story about what happens when the world finally sees the person everyone else chose to look right through. It's the story of Alex, a man whose quiet brilliance was about to be put to the ultimate test, not by a stranger, but by the very people who were supposed to be his greatest supporters. Alex lived in a world of miniature details. His small, second-floor apartment wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a workshop, a sanctuary, and a testament to his unique gift. By trade, he was an architectural model maker for a large, prestigious firm, a job most saw as a simple, technical craft. But for Alex, it was art. He didn't just assemble plastic and glue, he breathed life into blueprints. His hands, steady and calloused, could craft entire city blocks on a tabletop, each tiny window, miniature park bench, and delicate tree a silent poem about how people could live, connect, and find joy. His apartment was a forest of these silent poems. Finished models of utopian community centers and sustainable housing projects lined his shelves, their intricate beauty a stark contrast to his modest, almost Spartan, furnishings. He was a man who built worlds for others but owned very little of his own. His colleagues at the firm saw him as the quiet guy in the back room, reliable and skilled, but ultimately, just a cog in the machine. His family, however, saw even less. To them, his life's passion was a peculiar hobby, a boy's game with toys that he had refused to outgrow. They couldn't understand why he didn't have a realer job, a bigger apartment, or a more impressive title. His worth, in their eyes, was measured by a yardstick he had no interest in using. He found his validation not in their approval, but in the quiet hum of his desk lamp late at night, as another world took shape under his patient hands. He was overlooked, but he was not lost, for he knew the value of his work even if no one else did. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening, shattering the peaceful silence of his workspace. It was his mother, her voice a familiar blend of casual authority and feigned concern. Alex put down his precision knife, the tiny balcony railing he was crafting momentarily forgotten. He listened as his parents laid out their plan, not as a request, but as a foregone conclusion. His younger sister, Chloe, needed a place to stay. She'd quit another job, had a falling out with her roommate, and needed a fresh start in the city. And since Alex was her older brother, and he lived alone, it was only natural that she would move in with him. The words were delivered with such breezy certainty that Alex felt the air leave his lungs. He looked around his sanctuary, at the delicate, half-finished structures that required focus and stillness, a stillness he knew would be vaporized by his sister's chaotic energy. "Mom, my place is..." "It's very small," he started, his voice barely a protest. "It's my workshop," his mother sighed, a sound heavy with practiced disappointment. "Alex, this is your sister. Family is more important than your little hobbies. She needs you. It's your responsibility." The word responsibility landed like a lead weight. It was the word his family always used to corner him, to make him feel selfish for wanting a life of his own. He was the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who was expected to absorb the needs of others without complaint. He wanted to scream that his little hobbies were his entire life, the only thing that gave him a sense of purpose. He wanted to ask why Chloe's repeated failures were always his problem to solve. But he said none of it. The weight of lifelong conditioning, of being the dutiful, overlooked son, was too heavy. "Okay," he whispered, the single word feeling like a monumental defeat. "Tell her she can come." When he hung up, the silence in the apartment felt different. It was no longer peaceful. It was the silence of a coming storm. Chloe arrived 3 days later, not with a suitcase and a humble heart, but with an avalanche of luggage and an air of supreme entitlement. She swept into his apartment, her eyes scanning the space with undisguised disdain. She didn't see the artistry or the passion, she saw clutter. "Wow," she said, dropping a heavy bag on the floor with a thud that made Alex flinch, imagining the vibrations rattling his delicate models. "It's even smaller than I remembered. How do you live like this?" She walked over to his main workbench, where the centerpiece for his firm's annual design competition was taking shape, a revolutionary concept for a public library built around a central, sunlit atrium. She poked at a miniature tree with a manicured fingernail. You still playing with these little dollhouses? It's kind of sad, Alex. The words, meant to be casual, were surgically sharp. They were the same words he'd been hearing his whole life, but in the cramped confines of his own home, they felt suffocating. He tried to set a boundary. Chloe, please be careful. This is for a major competition at work. It's important. She just laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of any humor. Right. You're important at work. She turned, hands on her hips, and surveyed the living room. Well, that couch will have to go. I need a proper bed. And this whole corner, she said, gesturing to his primary shelf of finished models, can be cleared out for my stuff. Don't worry, I'll make this place livable. Alex felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. This wasn't a guest asking for shelter. This was an invasion. He opened his mouth to protest, but she cut him off, turning to face him with a look of unassailable authority. Look, she said, her voice dropping the pretense of politeness, Mom and Dad said this was the deal. I'm here to stay. So you might as well get used to it. This is my house now. The following week was a slow-motion nightmare. Chloe treated the apartment like a hotel and Alex like its invisible, unpaid staff. She left trails of clothes, makeup, and dirty dishes in her wake. The quiet hum of his work lamp was replaced by the constant blare of her television shows and the shrill sound of her endless phone calls. His sanctuary had become a prison. He tried to work, to find solace in his craft, but the disruption was constant. He found himself retreating further into his work on the library model, the competition deadline looming. It was more than just a project now, it was his escape, the only corner of his world she hadn't yet completely conquered. One evening, he came home from his day job, exhausted but eager to finish the intricate latticework on the model's glass roof. He walked in to find Chloe and a friend laughing loudly in the living room, a half-empty bottle of wine on the coffee table. His eyes immediately darted to his workbench. A large, dark red stain was spreading across the balsa wood base of his library model. A tipped-over wine glass lay next to it, a silent, damning piece of evidence. The central atrium, the heart of his design, was warped and stained. The delicate interior walls were buckled. Months of work, ruined in a moment of carelessness. Chloe, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. She looked up, her expression annoyed, not guilty. Oh, that? Oops. My friend bumped the table. It's just wooden glue, right? You can fix it. He looked from the ruined model to his sister's dismissive face, and something inside him finally snapped. All the years of being minimized, of having his passion belittled, of his feelings being ignored, coalesced into a single point of cold, hard anger. It is not just wooden glue, he said, his voice trembling with a rare intensity. This was everything. And you don't even care. Chloe rolled her eyes. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Alex. It's not the end of the world, but for Alex, it felt exactly like it. It was the final, brutal confirmation that to his sister, and to his family, he simply didn't matter. Miles away, in a glass-walled office overlooking the city, Arthur Harrison, CEO of the architectural firm, was having his own crisis. He sat at the head of a long, polished table, surrounded by his top architects. They were presenting their final concepts for the landmark Phoenix project, a massive urban revitalization initiative that would define the city's future and the firm's legacy. One by one, they presented slick, computer-generated renderings of steel and glass towers that were technically impressive but emotionally vacant. They were cold, corporate, and utterly devoid of a human soul. Mr. Harrison grew more and more agitated with each presentation. He rubbed his temples, a deep frown etched on his face. These were the best minds in the business, yet they were offering him nothing but glorified spreadsheets turned into buildings. Is this it? He finally boomed, his voice echoing in the silent boardroom. Is this the best we can do? Polished boxes? Where is the vision? Where is the heart? People have to live in these spaces, work in them, raise their children in them. I asked for a design that felt like a community, and you've brought me a portfolio of corporate headquarters. His senior vice president, a man named Marcus who embodied the firm's cynical, profit-driven ethos, spoke up. "Arthur, these designs are efficient, cost-effective, and modern. They are what the city expects." Mr. Harrison slammed his hand on the table. "I don't care what they expect. I care about what they need. They need a place that inspires them, that brings them together. They need a home, not just housing. This is a failure of imagination." He stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the sprawling city below. He felt a profound sense of despair. His legacy was on the line, and all he had were empty, soulless designs. He needed a miracle. He needed someone, anyone, who still remembered that architecture was not about buildings, but about people. That night, Alex didn't sleep. Fueled by a desperate mix of anger and grief, he set about trying to salvage his ruined masterpiece. He worked with a feverish intensity, his hands moving with a surgeon's precision. He carefully disassembled the damaged sections, painstakingly cleaning the wine stain and replacing the warped balsa wood. As he worked, an idea began to form. The stain, a symbol of the chaos Chloe had brought into his life, could be transformed. Instead of just repairing it, he could reimagine it. He decided to turn the damaged atrium into a sunken garden, with reclaimed wood and a small, trickling water feature. The imperfection became a part of the story, a symbol of resilience. He worked through the night and into the dawn, his small apartment filled with the smell of wood glue and fresh paint. By the time he was done, the model was not just repaired, it was better. It was more alive, more human. It now told a story of recovery and beauty found in brokenness. The competition deadline was that morning. With no time to spare, he carefully packaged the model and took it to the office, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and pride. He planned to leave it in the submission room and slip away unnoticed, as he always did. But as he was setting it up, he didn't hear the footsteps behind him. Mr. Harrison, unable to sleep, had come into the office early, seeking inspiration. He saw Alex hunched over the model and stopped dead in his tracks. He was drawn in not by its scale, but by its soul. He saw the tiny figures reading on benches in the sunken garden, the warm light designed to filter through the roof, the seamless blend of public space and quiet nooks. He saw everything he had been desperately searching for. He saw humanity. "What is this?" Mr. Harrison's voice was quiet, filled with a sense of awe that made Alex jump. Alex turned, his face pale with shock. He had never spoken directly to the CEO before. "Mr. Harrison, sir. This is just my entry for the internal design competition." He gestured vaguely at the model, feeling suddenly self-conscious. But Mr. Harrison wasn't looking at him, he was utterly captivated by the model. He leaned closer, his eyes tracing the intricate details. He pointed to the sunken garden. "This feature. The reclaimed wood, the way the light hits it. It feels lived in. It feels real. What was your philosophy behind this?" Alex, stumbling over his words at first, began to explain. He didn't use jargon or technical terms. He spoke from the heart. "I believe a library shouldn't just be a place to store books," Alex said, his confidence growing as he spoke about his passion. "It should be a town square for the mind. A place where people can gather, learn, and just be quiet together. The garden. It's about finding beauty after something is broken. It's about how communities can heal and grow stronger." Mr. Harrison listened, his expression unreadable. He walked around the table, examining the model from every angle. He saw the tiny wheelchair ramp integrated seamlessly into the entrance, the small, soundproof pods for students, the rooftop greenhouse for community gardening. It wasn't just a building, it was a complete ecosystem of human interaction. This wasn't a little hobby, this was genius. Finally, he looked up and met Alex's eyes. "Alex," he said, his voice firm and decisive. "Forget the competition. Cancel my morning meetings. You are going to present this to the board of directors for the Phoenix Project." In 1 hour, Alex's world tilted on its axis. The board? The Phoenix Project? It was the biggest project in the firm's history. "But sir," he stammered, "I'm just a model maker." Mr. Harrison put a hand on his shoulder, his gaze intense. "No," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You're a visionary. And it's about time everyone knew it." The boardroom was an intimidating sea of dark suits and skeptical faces. The same senior architects who had presented their soulless towers now sat with their arms crossed, looking at Alex as if he were an insect that had wandered into their sterile environment. Marcus, the senior VP, looked particularly annoyed at this disruption to the established order. Alex stood at the head of the table next to his model, his hands trembling slightly. He felt small, out of place, a fraud. But then he looked at Mr. Harrison, who gave him a subtle, encouraging nod. And he looked at his model, at the little world he had poured his entire being into. He took a deep breath and began to speak. He didn't talk about profit margins or square footage. He talked about loneliness and the need for connection. He described an elderly man finding a quiet place to read in the sunken garden. He painted a picture of a single mother using the free daycare facilities while she searched for a job on the library computers. He spoke of teenagers collaborating on school projects in the soundproof pods, and of a community coming together in the rooftop garden. "We have a chance to build more than just structures," he said, his voice gaining strength and passion. "We have a chance to build a heart for this city. A place that says to every single person, no matter who they are or where they come from, you belong here. You matter." He spoke with an earnestness and raw emotion the board had never heard before. The cynicism in the room began to dissolve, replaced by a grudging respect, and then genuine fascination. They weren't just looking at a model anymore, they were seeing a future they desperately wanted to believe in. When he finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then, Mr. Harrison began to clap, slowly and deliberately. One by one, the other board members, even a reluctant Marcus, joined in. The applause filled the room, a wave of validation that washed over Alex, healing years of feeling invisible. The decision was unanimous. Alex was not only put in charge of the library design, but he was also given a new, permanent role as the head of a new conceptual design department, created specifically for him. He was handed a team, a budget, and the creative freedom he had only ever dreamed of. His salary was tripled overnight. He walked out of the firm that evening in a daze, the world looking brighter, sharper. When he got home, the apartment was a mess, as usual. Chloe was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. Alex didn't say a word. He went to the closet, pulled out her empty suitcases, and began to calmly pack her things. He folded her clothes neatly, placed her makeup in its bag, and zipped it all up. Chloe finally looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief and anger. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. Alex placed the last suitcase by the door and finally turned to face her. His voice was calm, not angry, but filled with a new, unbreakable strength he didn't possess that morning. "This is my house, Chloe," he said, the words simple and true. "It was never your house. It's a place where I create, where I build, and it requires respect. You have two choices. You can stay, but if you do, you will treat me and my home with that respect. You will clean up after yourself, you will contribute, and you will recognize that my work is not a game. Or, you can take your things and leave." He stood there, no longer the quiet, accommodating brother. He was a man who knew his own worth. Chloe stared at him, speechless. She saw the change in his eyes, the set of his jaw. The brother she had always pushed around was gone. In his place stood a successful, confident man. The foundation of her own entitlement, built on the belief in his mediocrity, crumbled in that moment. Her skepticism, her gatekeeping, had been proven utterly, publicly wrong. For the first time, she had nothing to say. In the end, what is a home? Is it just walls and a roof, or is it the place where your value is seen, where your passion is nurtured? Alex's story reminds us that true worth has nothing to do with the size of your apartment or the title on your business card. It's measured in the integrity of your work, the depth of your passion, and the quiet dignity with which you treat yourself and others. His genius wasn't new, it had been there all along, hidden in plain sight, waiting for just one person to look past the surface and see the soul within. His transformation wasn't just about getting a promotion, it was about claiming the respect he had always deserved but never demanded. He became the architect of his own life. And Chloe? In the face of his undeniable success, she was forced to see her brother and herself in a new light. Her journey towards redemption would be long, but it began with that single, stunning moment of silence. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small for the things you are passionate about. Your little hobby could be the very thing the world is desperately waiting for. Your quiet dedication could be the blueprint for a better future. So, who in your life needs to be reminded of their own hidden genius? Share this story with them, and in the comments below, tell us about a time you discovered a hidden talent in yourself or someone else. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person to finally see you for your whole world to change.